The laptop screen went black at exactly 2:47 in the afternoon. And Dominic Kane, the man who controlled half of Chicago's underground empire, watched 18 years of blackmail files, offshore account codes, and security protocols vanish into digital oblivion, while 26-year-old waitress Autumn Rivers stood frozen in the doorway of the private dining room, lunch tray trembling in her hands, knowing she was the only person in that room who understood the laptop was being murdered from the inside. Giovanni's Steakhouse occupied the top floor of the Meridian building in downtown Chicago, but the private dining room on the eastern corner belonged to a world most people would never see. 15 men in suits that cost more than cars sat around a mahogany table designed for 12. Hong Kong investors on one side, Kane's associates on the other. $900 million in real estate deals spread across documents that covered every inch of polished wood. The deal should have closed 20 minutes ago. Instead, Kane stared at his laptop screen, displaying the blue screen of death while lines of encrypted code corrupted in real time across the monitor. His jaw tightened. His fingers went white against the edge of the table. Autumn had delivered appetizers to this room 40 minutes earlier. She'd returned with entrees. Now she stood motionless near the service door, watching everything fall apart. "Restart it," one of the Hong Kong investors said in Mandarin. His translator repeated the words in English. Kane's technical consultant, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, hunched over the keyboard. He typed commands that did nothing. The screen continued its death spiral. Files disappeared at 50 gigabytes per second. Transaction records, offshore routing numbers, security protocols for properties across 3 continents. Every piece of leverage Kane had collected since he was 19 years old. "It's a cascading registry failure," the consultant muttered. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "The encryption keys are corrupting the core files. I need to pull the hard drive before everything." "How long?" Kane's voice cut through the room like a blade. 2 hours minimum. Maybe 4. I have to rebuild the partition table. Restore from backup. We don't have 4 hours. The investor stood. "Mr. Kane, we have flights departing at 6. Without access to your security clearances and account verification, this deal cannot proceed." Kane's second in command, a broad-shouldered man everyone called Roman, stepped forward. "Give us 30 minutes. We've given you 40 already." The investor gestured to his team. "We're leaving." Autumn watched the technical consultant pull cables from the laptop with shaking hands. She recognized the error pattern flashing across the screen before it died completely. She'd seen it before. 7 years ago at MIT when someone sabotaged the university's financial database and blamed her for it. The same malware signature, the same cascade pattern, the same deliberate destruction disguised as system failure. That decision to speak up would cost me everything I thought I was protecting. But in that moment, watching a roomful of dangerous men panic over a problem I understood better than any of them, I couldn't stay silent. "I might be able to help." The words came out softer than she intended. The room didn't hear her at first. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I can help with the laptop." 15 faces turned toward her. Autumn felt the weight of their stares like physical pressure against her chest. She was still holding the lunch tray, silver dome covers, cloth napkins folded into triangles. She looked exactly like what she was. Nobody important serving food to people who controlled the city. Roman crossed the room in 3 strides. "You're dismissed. Leave the food and go." "I know what's wrong with it." Autumn's voice steadied. She'd spent 7 years working 3 jobs, surviving on 2 hours of sleep, keeping her brother alive through sheer stubbornness. She'd learned how to sound confident even when her legs wanted to collapse. "The laptop is experiencing a hardware conflict with corrupted registry keys. Someone triggered a logic bomb inside your system." The technical consultant laughed. Actually laughed. "A logic bomb? Did you learn that from a movie?" "I learned it from reverse engineering malware at MIT before I got expelled 3 credits short of graduating." Autumn set the tray down on the side table. Her hands had stopped shaking. "That blue screen pattern means your boot sector is being rewritten in a loop. Every time the system tries to restart, it triggers another cascade. Your consultant is right about pulling the hard drive, but wrong about needing 4 hours. I can isolate the infected files, create a bridge protocol, and restore your data in under 30 minutes. Silence filled the room like water flooding a sealed chamber. Roman grabbed her arm. "Security will escort you out." "Wait." Kane's voice stopped everyone cold. He stood slowly, his gray eyes fixed on Autumn with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. "I didn't know it then, but the man staring at me would become either my salvation or my destruction. Explain the bridge protocol. You trick the system into thinking the recovery command is coming from inside the corrupted sector instead of outside. The malware is programmed to reject external interference, but it can't reject its own code structure. You essentially make the virus undo itself. Where did you learn that? MIT. Computer science. Cybersecurity specialization. Before they kicked me out for something I didn't do. Autumn met his gaze without flinching. I've spent 7 years teaching myself everything they didn't let me finish. I built my own system from scrap parts. I can fix this. Kane looked at his consultant. Can you do what she's describing? The man's face flushed red. Theoretically, yes, but it would take days to code. I already have the code. Autumn pulled a USB drive from her apron pocket. The drive was ancient, scratched, held together with electrical tape. She'd bought it at a pawn shop for $3. I wrote it after the same malware destroyed my life. I keep it with me. Call it paranoia or preparation. But I can save your files. Let me try. The room erupted in overlapping voices. The consultant sputtering objections, Roman insisting she be removed. The Hong Kong investors arguing among themselves. Through it all, Kane watched Autumn with an expression she couldn't read. Finally, he raised one hand. Everyone stopped talking. Let her try. His voice carried absolute authority. He gestured to the laptop. You have 30 minutes. If you succeed, you'll be compensated. If you fail, he paused, his eyes never leaving hers. You never leave this building. Do you understand? Autumn swallowed hard. She understood perfectly. She was standing in a room with 15 criminals who couldn't risk her walking out with knowledge of their panic. Success meant survival. Failure meant disappearing into Lake Michigan before sunset. She walked to the laptop, pulled out the chair, and sat down. Every eye in the room burned into her back. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for one brief second. Then she inserted the USB drive and began to type. If you love stories about hidden talent, shocking, powerful people, hit that like button. Don't forget to comment the country you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Subscribe so you never miss moments like what's about to happen. Autumn's fingers moved across the keyboard like she was conducting a symphony only she could hear. The room held its collective breath. 15 men watched a waitress in a stained apron attempt what their highly paid consultant couldn't accomplish. The only sound was the rapid clicking of keys and the distant hum of traffic 17 floors below. She booted the laptop into safe mode. The screen flickered to life, displaying lines of code that scrolled too fast for anyone else to follow. Her eyes tracked every character, every command, every error message that appeared and vanished in milliseconds. Roman stood directly behind her chair, arms crossed, radiating hostility. The technical consultant paced near the windows, muttering under his breath. Kane remained motionless at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Autumn navigated through system files, bypassing security protocols with commands she'd memorized years ago. She found the malware hiding in the update folder, disguised as a routine Windows patch. The code was elegant, professional. Whoever wrote it understood Kane's security infrastructure from the inside. She pulled up the file properties, creation date, modification history, access logs. Her pulse quickened as she traced the digital fingerprints backward through the system. Then she froze. Whatever she found on that screen made her blood run cold. What is it? Kane's voice cut through the silence. Autumn's mouth went dry. She'd expected external hackers, Russian criminals, Chinese state actors, anyone except what the evidence showed. She turned in her chair to face the room. Someone planted the malware deliberately. 3 days ago, at 11:23 inches the morning, from inside your network. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. That's impossible, Roman said. Our security is. Your security was bypassed by someone with administrative access. Autumn's voice gained strength as her certainty grew. The malware was designed to trigger during today's meeting. It's set to corrupt your files and simultaneously transmit copies to an external server. You're being robbed and destroyed at the same time. Kane's jaw tightened. Can you trace who did it? Already did. Autumn pulled up a log file displaying IP addresses and access timestamps. The malware originated from a machine with user credentials registered to someone named Adrian Cross. Head of your security operations. He uploaded the infected file from his office computer 72 hours ago. Every head turned toward a man sitting 3 seats from Kane. Adrian Cross had the build of a former Marine, close-cropped gray hair, and a face that had forgotten how to show emotion. For 18 months, he'd overseen every security protocol in Kane's empire. He'd vetted every employee. He'd been trusted with information that could topple governments. Cross's face went white. He knew she'd found it. That's a lie. Cross stood slowly, his hand moving toward his jacket. She's trying to sabotage this meeting. She's probably working for... Sit down. Kane's voice carried no volume but absolute authority. Roman. Roman moved faster than his size suggested possible. His hand clamped around Cross's wrist before the man could reach whatever weapon he kept in his shoulder holster. Two other men appeared from corners of the room Autumn hadn't noticed them occupying. Within seconds, Cross was pinned in his chair, arms immobilized. Show me the evidence, Kane said to Autumn. She rotated the laptop so everyone could see the screen. File paths, timestamps, access logs, every piece of data pointing to Cross's credentials. She pulled up email records showing encrypted communications with external addresses, financial transactions hidden in offshore accounts, $2 million transferred in cryptocurrency over the past month. The emails are coded, but the payment trail is clear, Autumn said. Someone paid him to destroy your deal today. The malware was programmed to trigger at the exact moment you connected with the Hong Kong investors. Maximum damage. Maximum exposure. Cross stopped struggling. His shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him like water through a sieve. Who paid you? Kane's voice dropped to a whisper more terrifying than any shout. Cross laughed bitterly. You already know. The Rossi family. Angelo made an offer I couldn't refuse. $2 million now. Another $3 million when the job was done. My daughter needs a kidney transplant. $5 million buys her life. Your empire versus my child. What choice did I have? You had the choice to ask me for help, Kane said quietly. I did ask. You said the organization doesn't do charity. I said we don't do charity for strangers. You've worked for me 18 months. That makes you family. Kane's gray eyes held something between fury and disappointment. I would have paid for her surgery. All of it. You only had to tell me the truth. Cross closed his eyes. The weight of his mistake crushed him visibly. Autumn watched the exchange while her hands continued working. She'd stopped the corruption process, but the files were still vulnerable. She needed additional hardware to complete the recovery. I need tools, she said, breaking the heavy silence. An external hard drive. At least 200 gigabytes. Anyone have one in a briefcase or laptop bag? One of the Hong Kong investors wordlessly handed her a sleek black drive. Autumn plugged it in and began transferring files to safe storage. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, creating partitions, copying data, building redundancies. The door to the private dining room opened. The restaurant manager stepped inside, a small Italian man with worry carved into every line of his face. He saw Autumn at the laptop and relief flooded his features. Mr. Kane, if Autumn says she can fix it, she can. She repaired our entire point-of-sale system last year when it crashed during Valentine's Day. We had 300 reservations and no way to process payments. She rebuilt the whole network in 90 minutes, using nothing but determination and a toolkit from the hardware store. Kane looked from the manager to Autumn, then back at his dying laptop. How much longer? Autumn checked her progress bar. 18% complete. The clock on the wall showed 3:09. She'd been working for 22 minutes. 8 minutes for the file transfer. Another 5 to rebuild the boot sector. Call it 15 total. Do it fast. Kane turned to the Hong Kong investors, who were whispering among themselves. You have 20 minutes before the investors walk. Autumn pulled up the command console and began typing code directly into the system kernel. No interface, no safety nets, pure programming executed in real time with 15 witnesses watching every keystroke. One wrong character would brick the entire machine permanently. Her fingers moved without hesitation. She'd run these sequences 1,000 times in her cramped studio apartment, practicing on the ancient computer she'd built from recycled parts scavenged behind electronics stores. Back then, she'd been preparing for a moment she thought would never come. Now that moment was here, and muscle memory took over where conscious thought would have failed her. The external hard drive hummed softly as it received data stream after data stream. Autumn partitioned the drive into 3 separate sections, creating redundant backups while simultaneously isolating the infected files. The malware fought back, trying to corrupt the copies as they transferred. She countered each attack with commands that redirected the virus into empty directories where it could destroy nothing but its own code. 15 minutes, Roman announced. He'd positioned himself by the door. physically blocking the Hong Kong investors from leaving. The lead investor checked his watch. "We have flights to catch. Mr. Kane, we cannot wait indefinitely." Kane stood and walked to the window overlooking Michigan Avenue. Traffic crawled 17 floors below. He spoke without turning around. "My associate is rebuilding an entire security infrastructure from corrupted fragments. In 15 minutes, you'll have everything you need to proceed. In exchange for your patience, I'll reduce my commission by 0.5 percentage point. That's $4.5 million you keep." The investors conferred quietly in Mandarin. The translator looked to Kane. "They want to see progress, proof she's actually accomplishing something." Autumn rotated the laptop screen toward them. Lines of code scrolled upward in a continuous stream. File names appeared and vanished as data transferred from corrupted sectors to clean storage. Recovery percentage ticked upward in the corner. 28%, 31, 35. "She's rewriting the boot sector," the technical consultant said quietly. Admiration had replaced his earlier mockery. "I've never seen anyone code that fast without a single error. She's doing in minutes what should take teams of engineers weeks to accomplish." Kane finally turned from the window. His gray eyes found Autumn. "How much longer?" 10 minutes. Maybe less." Autumn's voice remained steady even though her vision had started to blur at the edges. She'd worked a double shift at the diner yesterday, stayed up all night reviewing code for a freelance project that paid in grocery money, then pulled another shift this morning. 48 hours without sleep. Her body was operating on caffeine and desperation. The progress bar hit 50%, then stopped. The room held its breath. Autumn's fingers flew across the keyboard, diagnosing the blockage. The malware had embedded itself deeper than she'd anticipated, creating a digital tripwire that would destroy everything if triggered incorrectly. She needed more processing power. The laptop alone couldn't handle the computational load required to defuse the trap while simultaneously recovering files. She pulled her phone from her apron pocket, an old iPhone with a cracked screen she'd bought refurbished 3 years ago. She connected it to the laptop via USB cable. "What are you doing?" Roman asked. "Using my phone as an external processor. The malware is trying to force a choice. Recover the files or remove the infection. I'm going to do both simultaneously by splitting the workload across 2 devices." She launched a custom app she'd coded herself, something she used for testing security vulnerabilities when she couldn't afford proper equipment. The phone's screen lit up with scrolling data as it began handling half the computational burden. The laptop's progress bar lurched forward. 55%, 62, 68. 5 minutes, Roman said. The lead investor stood. "We're leaving. This is taking too long." 4 more minutes, Kane said. "I'm asking for 4 more minutes." "We've already given you 40. "Then 4 more won't kill you." Something in Kane's voice made the investor sit back down. "Watch her work. You're witnessing something remarkable." Autumn barely heard them. Her entire world had narrowed to the 2 screens in front of her, laptop and phone working in tandem, executing commands faster than any single device could manage. The bridge protocol was forming, creating a pathway between corrupted sectors and clean storage. The malware sensed what she was doing and fought back viciously, spawning new infection vectors with each passing second. She countered every move, isolated each new threat, quarantined the hostile code into virtual containers where it could rage harmlessly. Sweat ran down her temples. Her hands shook from exhaustion and adrenaline. The clock kept ticking. 79%, 85, 91. 2 minutes, Roman announced. The laptop suddenly displayed a critical error message. Autumn's stomach dropped. The boot sector repair had triggered a failsafe she hadn't anticipated. The system was preparing to wipe itself clean rather than risk infection spreading. She had 90 seconds to override the failsafe, or everything she'd recovered would vanish permanently. Her fingers moved faster than conscious thought. Commands poured from her mind through her hands into the machine. She was no longer typing code. She was having a conversation with the operating system itself, convincing it that the danger had passed, that recovery was safe, that it could trust her. With 90 seconds left, the laptop went completely black. The external hard drive stopped humming. Her phone screen went dark. Every device in the chain had shut down simultaneously. Complete system failure. "She failed," someone whispered. Autumn stared at the dead screen. Her vision tunneled. She couldn't breathe. 48 hours without sleep. 2 years keeping her brother alive on a waitress salary. 7 years carrying the weight of unjust expulsion. All of it had led to this moment, and she'd failed. Kane would never let her leave this room. She'd gambled everything and lost. Then the screen lit up with 3 words. Files restored successfully. The laptop rebooted. Windows loaded smoothly. The desktop appeared exactly as it should. Every icon in place. Every file accessible. Autumn opened the security folder with trembling hands. 18 years of blackmail files. Offshore account codes. Property records. Contact lists. Transaction histories. Everything intact. Everything encrypted. Everything functional. The room erupted in voices. The consultant rushed forward to verify the restoration. The Hong Kong investors leaned over the screen, checking file integrity. Roman clapped once, a sharp sound that cut through the chaos. Kane walked to the laptop and scrolled through his files with methodical precision. He checked account access, opened encrypted documents, verified security protocols. 5 minutes of absolute silence while everyone waited for his verdict. Finally, he looked at Autumn. How did you do that? Practice. Preparation, and refusing to accept failure as an option. Her voice came from somewhere far away. The room had started spinning slowly. Kane gestured to the Hong Kong investors. Gentlemen, shall we proceed? The deal took 12 minutes to finalize. Documents signed, accounts verified, $900 million in real estate transferred across 3 continents. Autumn watched from her chair, unable to move, as powerful men shook hands and spoke in languages she didn't understand. When the investors finally left, Kane turned to her. You saved my empire. Name your price. Autumn tried to stand. Her legs folded beneath her. The room tilted sideways. She heard Kane shout her name, felt strong hands catch her before she hit the floor. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was his face, gray eyes wide with something that looked almost like fear. When I woke up, I wasn't in Giovanni's anymore. I was somewhere I should never have been. If this had you holding your breath, tap that like button. Share this with someone who loves underdog stories. Subscribe because what happens next changes everything. Autumn woke to the smell of leather and expensive cologne. Her head rested on a cushion softer than any pillow she'd owned in 7 years. She blinked slowly, trying to orient herself. The ceiling above her was dark mahogany with recessed lighting. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a Chicago skyline bathed in late afternoon sun. She sat up too quickly. The room spun. Her apron was gone, replaced by a cashmere blanket someone had draped over her while she slept. Panic flared in her chest. Where was she? How long had she been unconscious? Was Ethan okay? She'd missed checking in with the hospital. You slept 3 hours. Kane's voice came from behind a massive desk made of the same dark mahogany as the ceiling. He was reading something on his computer, not looking at her. The Hong Kong deal closed successfully. You have my gratitude. Autumn stood on shaking legs. She was in an office that belonged in architectural magazines. Original artwork on the walls. A bar cart with crystal decanters. Furniture that cost more than she'd earned in the past year. Through the windows, she could see they were at least 30 floors up. I need to go. Her voice came out hoarse. My shift at the diner starts in 2 hours. I've already called Giovanni's. Told them you're taking the rest of the week off. Paid. Kane finally looked at her. His gray eyes held something she couldn't decipher. Sit down, Miss Rivers. We need to talk. How do you know my last name? I know everything about you. He gestured to a folder on the desk. Autumn Marie Rivers, 26 years old, born in Boston, moved to Chicago for MIT. Expelled 3 credits short of graduating. Computer science major. Cybersecurity specialization. Grade point average of 3.94 until your expulsion. Currently working 3 jobs. Waitress at Giovanni's, overnight stock clerk at a convenience store, weekend data entry for a medical billing company. 12-hour days, sometimes 16. You sleep on the subway between shifts. Autumn's blood ran cold. Nobody knew all of that. She'd kept her life compartmentalized deliberately. Different jobs never overlapping. Different versions of herself for different places. Kane opened the folder. Your younger brother, Ethan Rivers, age 24. Northwestern Memorial Hospital, critical care unit. Traumatic brain injury from a car accident 2 years ago. Coma patient. Life support costs $4,000 monthly. Your parents disowned you after the MIT expulsion. Your brother is the only family you have left. She wanted to run. To scream. To demand how he'd gathered information that should have been private. Instead, she stood frozen while Kane continued reading from her life like it was a grocery list. You live in a studio apartment in Logan Square. Rent is $800 monthly. You haven't bought new clothes in 3 years. Last dental appointment was 4 years ago. You donate plasma twice a week for extra money. The plasma center pays $40 per donation. Stop. The word came out as a whisper. Kane closed the folder. I had my people investigate you while you slept. I needed to understand who saved my empire and why. What I found surprised me. He stood and walked around the desk. Up close, Autumn realized he was taller than she'd thought. 6'2" at least, broad shoulders, the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. You were framed at MIT, he said simply. You didn't hack the university's financial database. Someone else did and made it look like you. Autumn's knees went weak. I've been saying that for 7 years. Nobody believed me. I believe you, because I know who really did it. Kane slid a photograph across the desk. When she saw the face in it, she stopped breathing. Gregory Walsh, 28 years old. Blonde hair cut in that effortless style rich boys wore. Blue eyes that looked friendly in photographs, but had been cold as ice when he'd watched campus security escort her from her dorm room. Senator Walsh's son. The golden boy who'd never faced consequences for anything in his privileged life. That name, Autumn whispered. Gregory Walsh, how do you know that name? He works for the Rossi family now. Their technology specialist. The same family that paid Adrian Cross $2 million to sabotage my deal today. Kane's voice dropped lower. Walsh hacked MIT's financial systems 7 years ago. He was stealing exam answers and reselling them to other students. You witnessed him accessing servers he shouldn't have touched. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, so he framed you, planted evidence in your account, made you the scapegoat while he walked away clean. Autumn gripped the edge of the desk. 7 years. 7 years of carrying the shame of something she didn't do. 7 years of watching her life fall apart while the real criminal lived free. Senator Walsh made the charges disappear for his son. Kane continued, paid off the right people, buried the investigation, and you took the fall because you had no money, no connections, no power to fight back. Why are you telling me all of this? Tears burned behind Autumn's eyes. She refused to let them fall. Because Walsh works for my enemies, which means you were destroyed by the same people who just tried to destroy me. Kane walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The Rossi family. They've been trying to take my territory for 2 years. Today was their closest attempt. They failed because of you. Autumn stared at Walsh's photograph. She'd imagined confronting him 1,000 times, demanding answers, forcing him to admit the truth. In her fantasies, justice prevailed. In reality, she'd been too busy surviving to seek revenge. What do you want from me? She asked. Kane turned from the window. His gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her heart race. I have a proposal. Help me destroy the Rossi family, and I'll help you destroy the man who ruined your life. Autumn sank into the chair across from Kane's desk. The leather embraced her exhausted body. She hadn't sat in furniture this comfortable since before MIT destroyed her life. The memory of that time felt like looking at someone else's photograph. Tell me what happened, Kane said. All of it. Start from the beginning. She'd never told anyone the full story. Not the other waitresses at Giovanni's. Not the overnight manager at the convenience store. Not the medical billing supervisor who thought she was just a college dropout with poor time management. Her life had become a series of compartments, each one sealed off from the others. But Kane already knew most of it, and something about the way he looked at her, not with pity but with genuine interest, made the words come easier than they should have. 7 years ago, I had everything. Her voice was steady. She'd learned not to cry about the past. Tears changed nothing. Full scholarship to MIT. Computer science major with a specialization in cybersecurity. I'd been accepted into a research program with Professor Chen, the kind of program that leads to 6-figure job offers before graduation. My parents were proud. For the first time in their lives, they had something to brag about at family gatherings. Their daughter at MIT. Kane listened without interrupting. He'd sat down behind his desk, fingers steepled under his chin. I was in the computer lab late one Tuesday in March. Finals were 3 weeks away. I was reviewing code for a project when I needed to access the university server for reference materials. That's when I saw another user logged into administrative systems they shouldn't have touched. Financial database, student records, grade systems, all restricted access. The memory was sharp as broken glass. She could still see the timestamp on her screen. 2:37 inches the morning. The username that didn't match any professor she recognized. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe a graduate assistant working late. But the access pattern was wrong. They were downloading files. Exam questions, answer keys, entire courses worth of material. I watched for 20 minutes, documenting what I saw. I planned to report it to the department head the next morning. But you never got the chance, Kane said quietly. Campus security came to my dorm at 6 in the morning. They said I'd hacked the financial database and stolen confidential student information. They had logs showing my account, accessing restricted systems. Timestamps, IP addresses, everything pointed to me. I tried to explain about the other user I'd witnessed, but they said I was lying, making up stories to cover my crime. Autumn's hands clenched in her lap. By noon, I was expelled. By that evening, MIT had contacted every major university in the country, blacklisted. My scholarship was revoked. The research program dropped me. Professor Chen wouldn't return my calls. And my parents, her voice caught for the first time. They believed MIT. They said I'd brought shame to the family. That I was no better than a common criminal. They told me to never contact them again. Kane's expression remained neutral, but his knuckles had gone white against the armrest of his chair. I moved into a shelter, got a job washing dishes, tried to clear my name, but nobody would listen. Walsh's father made sure of that. Senator Walsh has connections everywhere. The investigation was closed before it began. I was guilty. Case finished. She paused, gathering strength for the next part. 2 years after my expulsion, my brother Ethan was driving home from his night shift at a warehouse. Truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Hit Ethan's car head-on. Traumatic brain injury. The doctors said he had a 15% chance of survival. They recommended letting him go. Turning off life support. But you didn't, Kane said. He was the only person who believed me. The only family member who still answered my calls. When everyone else turned their backs, Ethan said he knew I was innocent. He helped me buy my first computer parts so I could keep learning. He sent me $20 whenever he had it. Even though he was barely surviving himself, I couldn't let him die. Autumn looked directly at Kane. Life support costs $4,000 every month. The hospital wants payment up front. No payment, no machine. So I got a second job, a third job. I learned to sleep 2 hours a night. I learned to stretch $1 until it screamed. Every tip I earned, every plate I carried, every inventory sheet I counted at 3 in the morning. It was all for him. The only family I had left. What Kane didn't know, what nobody knew, was that she'd spent 7 years preparing for one thing. Every spare minute between shifts, between hospital visits, between moments of collapse, she'd taught herself everything MIT never let her finish. Computer science textbooks from library sales, online courses, forums where real hackers shared real knowledge. She'd built her skills in darkness, alone, with nothing but determination, and borrowed Wi-Fi. Kane leaned forward. Your brother, he's still in a coma? 2 years and 4 months. The doctors say there's an experimental treatment in Germany. Stem cell therapy combined with targeted electrical stimulation. Early trials show promise. But it costs $500,000. I make $23,000 a year across 3 jobs. I'll never have that kind of money. The office fell silent. Outside the windows, Chicago continued its endless rhythm. Cars on streets below. People in buildings across the street. A world moving forward while Autumn stood still, trapped in a cycle of survival that allowed no escape. Kane asked the question she'd been waiting for. Do you want revenge? Autumn looked him in the eyes. 7 years of exhaustion. 7 years of carrying injustice. 7 years of watching Walsh live free while her life crumbled. She thought about her brother in his hospital bed, kept alive by machines she could barely afford. She thought about her parents who'd abandoned her. She thought about MIT's walls she'd never see again. She thought about every late-night shift, every skipped meal, every moment of invisible suffering. I want to watch Walsh's world burn. Kane opened a drawer and pulled out a document. 15 pages, legal size, printed on heavy paper. He placed it on the desk between them. $300,000 annually, paid monthly. All of your brother's medical expenses covered, including the experimental treatment in Germany. A penthouse apartment in one of my buildings. Utilities included. No rent. Transportation provided. 4-person security detail assigned to you at all times. Autumn stared at the numbers. 300,000. She earned 23,000 across 3 jobs that consumed her entire existence. The salary Kane offered was more money than she'd see in 13 years of her current life. What would I have to do? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Rebuild my digital infrastructure from the ground up. Create a security system that can't be breached by anyone, including government agencies. Help me identify every weakness in my operations and eliminate them. And when the time comes, help me take down the Rossi family and Gregory Walsh. The words hung in the air like smoke. Autumn understood what he was really asking. Join his world. Become part of an organization that operated outside the law. Use her skills to protect criminals, to enable operations she'd probably rather not know about, to cross lines she couldn't uncross. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone, Kane added, reading her hesitation. I'm asking you to do what you do best. Build systems, solve problems, protect data, the same skills you used to save my empire 3 hours ago. The only difference is the scale and the compensation. And the legality, Autumn said quietly. Kane didn't deny it. I won't pretend my business is legitimate. Parts of it are. Real estate, investments, import and export. But other parts exist in gray areas. You'd be helping me protect all of it. That makes you complicit. I won't lie about that. Autumn thought about her brother. 2 years and 4 months in a coma. Every month she scraped together $4,000. She bought him 30 more days of breathing. But she couldn't buy him waking up. She couldn't afford the treatment that might actually save him. The experimental procedure in Germany remained forever out of reach, a possibility that existed only in her desperate fantasies. How do you even know about the German treatment? She asked. Kane touched his keyboard. His monitor rotated to face her. Medical records. Ethan's full file from Northwestern Memorial. Recent MRI scans showing brain activity patterns. Doctor's notes recommending experimental treatments the family couldn't afford. I had my people pull his records this afternoon while you slept. The lead physician, Dr. Rodriguez, believes Ethan has significant potential for recovery. His brain activity shows more function than typical coma patients at this stage. The experimental procedure in Germany has an 82% success rate with patients matching his profile. $500,000. 6 months of treatment. He could wake up. Autumn's chest tightened. She'd asked Dr. Rodriguez about the German program 6 months ago. He'd explained the costs, the logistics, the impossibility of it for someone in her situation. She'd cried in her car for 20 minutes before driving to her night shift at the convenience store. Work for me 1 year, Kane said. Just 1 year. Save your brother. Get your revenge. After that, if you want to walk away, I'll pay for your relocation anywhere in the world. New identity if you want it. Clean slate. You'll have enough money to start over legitimately. Or you can stay. The choice will be yours. 1 year. 12 months of compromising her principles in exchange for her brother's life and justice for the man who destroyed her. Autumn's hands trembled in her lap. Kane pulled another document from his desk. Medical authorization forms. Sign these and I'll have Ethan transferred to the German clinic within 72 hours. Treatment begins immediately. All expenses covered. You'll never see another hospital bill. He was offering her everything she'd dreamed about for 7 years. Her brother's recovery, financial security, revenge against Walsh. A real apartment instead of a studio with water stains on the ceiling. The ability to sleep more than 2 hours a night. Food that didn't come from dollar menus or plasma center vending machines. All she had to do was sell her soul to a man who made his fortune in darkness. What happens if I say no? Autumn asked. You walk out that door. I pay you $50,000 for saving my deal today. You never hear from me again. Your brother stays at Northwestern. You keep working 3 jobs. Walsh remains untouchable. The Rossi family continues trying to destroy me, probably succeeding eventually. Kane leaned back in his chair. But if you say yes, you get power, real power, the kind that comes from having resources and protection. You stop being invisible. You stop being someone the world ignores. You become someone who can't be pushed around anymore. Autumn looked at the contract, at the medical authorization forms, at the MRI scans showing her brother's brain, still fighting to come back after 2 years of darkness. She thought about her parents who'd abandoned her, MIT that had blacklisted her, Walsh who'd framed her, 7 years of punishment for a crime she didn't commit while the real criminal lived free. Justice didn't exist for people like her. The system protected people like Walsh. Money and connections won every time. The only way to fight power was with greater power. And Kane was offering her exactly that. Kane slid the contract toward her. My hand shook as I reached for the pen. 1 year, she said. I work for you 1 year. You cover Ethan's treatment. You help me destroy Walsh. After that, we're even. After that, you're free to choose. Autumn signed her name on the final page. The moment ink touched paper, my old life ended. Kane signed below her signature. Witness signatures appeared from somewhere. Roman materialized to notarize the document. The whole thing took 5 minutes. When it was done, Kane made a phone call. Transfer Ethan Rivers to Lutheran General, private floor. Prepare him for international medical transport. Destination is the Mueller Institute in Berlin. Dr. Autumn Rivers has full authorization for all decisions. He hung up and looked at her. Your brother will be in Germany by Friday. You'll have video access to monitor his progress. The Mueller Institute will send weekly reports. Autumn couldn't speak. This was really happening. After 2 years of watching her brother lie motionless, help was finally coming. Roman will assign your security team. They'll move your belongings to your new apartment tonight. You start tomorrow morning, 8th floor. Your office is already being prepared. Kane stood and extended his hand. Autumn rose on shaking legs and shook it. His grip was firm, warm, completely human. She'd just made a deal with a Mafia boss, but his hand felt like any other businessman's. I shook hands with the devil that afternoon, but the devil was offering me everything heaven had denied me. What I didn't know was that Kane had just made me the target of every enemy he'd ever made. If you'd make the same choice, hit that like button. And if you're wondering where this goes, trust me, you'll want to subscribe because the next chapter is intense. 4 months after signing the contract, Autumn lived in a penthouse apartment with marble countertops and a view of Lake Michigan that real estate agents would call priceless. She still ate ramen noodles from the discount grocery store 3 blocks away. Old habits died hard. 7 years of poverty had carved themselves into her bones deeper than 4 months of salary could erase. She kept the takeout menus Kane's people had left in her kitchen drawer. Never ordered from them. The prices made her stomach hurt. $18 for pasta, $25 for a burger. She could feed herself for a week on $25 if she shopped carefully. The apartment had a washing machine. She still washed her clothes by hand in the bathtub like she'd done in her old studio. Water was free. Detergent was cheap. Why waste electricity? But Ethan was in Berlin. That was all that mattered. The Mueller Institute sent her video updates twice a week. Her brother's brain activity had increased 17% in the first month alone. Dr. Schneider called it remarkable progress. Autumn called it a miracle bought with a deal she'd probably regret someday. Her office occupied the entire 8th floor of Kane's building. 2,300 square feet of workspace divided into server rooms, testing labs, and a corner desk where she spent 16 hours daily building what she called Fortress Protocol, the most advanced security system she'd ever conceived. Self-learning algorithms that adapted to threats in real time, encryption that changed its own keys every 90 seconds, firewalls that grew stronger with each attack they repelled. Kane's existing tech team hated her on sight. 7 men who'd worked together for years suddenly reporting to a 26-year-old woman who'd been a waitress 4 months ago. They didn't hide their resentment. Didn't answer when she asked questions. Made her repeat herself 3 times before acknowledging her instructions. Whispered loudly enough for her to hear whenever she walked past. She must be sleeping with the boss. How else does a waitress get this job? Probably on her knees in his office right now. Give her 6 months. She'll be gone when he gets bored. Autumn ignored them. She'd survived 7 years of worse. She worked 90-hour weeks, arrived before anyone else, left after everyone had gone home. Let her results speak when her words couldn't penetrate their contempt. Fortress Protocol's first phase launched in week 8. System efficiency improved 43% overnight. Security breaches dropped to 0. Processing speeds doubled. The numbers didn't lie, even if the men who'd built the old system refused to admit defeat. I was so focused on my work, I didn't notice I was being watched. Kane visited her office every day, sometimes twice. He said he wanted progress updates, but the updates never took long. 5 minutes of her explaining code architecture. Then 20 minutes of him asking if she'd eaten lunch. Did she need better equipment? Was the office temperature comfortable? Had his tech team been cooperative? His visits grew longer, his questions more personal. He brought her coffee one Tuesday morning. Not from the building's cafeteria, but from the place 6 blocks away she'd mentioned liking once in passing. He'd remembered. Somehow, he'd remembered a throwaway comment about coffee, and showed up with her exact order. Large dark roast, no sugar, splash of cream. You didn't have to do that, Autumn said. I know, Kane set the cup on her desk. But you've been here since 5 in the morning. You should eat something more substantial than vending machine crackers. She looked at him, confused by the concern in his voice. Mafia bosses didn't worry about employee nutrition. At least, she didn't think they did. Her only reference point was movies, and those men certainly never brought coffee to their programmers. Kane's sister appeared in week 12. Nina Kane walked into Autumn's office wearing a suit that cost more than a month of Autumn's old salary and an expression colder than Chicago in January. 32 years old, sharp features, dark hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. "So you're the waitress my brother hired." Nina circled Autumn's desk like a predator evaluating prey. "Everyone's talking about you. The girl who saved a $900 million deal with a $3 USB drive." "I was just doing what needed to be done." Autumn met Nina's gaze without flinching. 7 years of surviving on spite had taught her not to back down from anyone. Nina studied her for a long moment. Whatever test she'd been conducting, Autumn apparently passed. The cold expression thawed slightly. "Show me what you're building." Autumn spent the next hour walking Nina through Fortress protocol. The architecture, the redundancies, the self-healing algorithms. Nina asked sharp questions that proved she understood technology far better than most executives. By the time Autumn finished, Nina was nodding with something that looked almost like approval. "You actually know what you're doing," Nina said. "That's rare around here. Most people my brother hires are all muscle and no brain." "I'm not much muscle either." "No, but you're smart, and you don't treat me like I'm decoration." Nina sat on the edge of Autumn's desk. "My brother talks about you constantly. Do you know that? Every dinner, every meeting. Autumn solved this problem. Autumn designed that system. Autumn works too hard. It's nauseating, honestly." Autumn's face heated. "He's my employer. He's monitoring my progress." "He monitors everyone's progress. He doesn't bring them coffee." Nina studied her with eyes that missed nothing. "Be careful with him. He's more dangerous when he cares about someone than when he hates them." Over the following weeks, Nina returned regularly. The coldness disappeared entirely, replaced by something Autumn recognized as friendship. Real friendship, the kind she hadn't experienced since MIT destroyed her social life. They had lunch together, compared notes on Kane's impossible standards. Nina complained about their mother's constant phone calls about grandchildren. Autumn talked about Ethan's progress in Berlin. One afternoon, Nina told her something that changed everything. "My brother has never brought a woman to our mother's grave. Until you." Autumn stopped typing. "What?" "Last Sunday. He took you to the cemetery, showed you where our parents are buried. He doesn't do that. Ever. Our father was murdered 19 years ago. Betrayed by his closest friend. Shot 12 times while my brother watched. My brother was 19 years old. He became the head of this organization the next day because someone had to protect me, protect the family, keep our father's enemies from finishing what they started." Nina's voice softened. "He's killed people, Autumn. I won't pretend otherwise. He's done things that would horrify you. But he did them because he had no choice. Someone had to be the monster, or we'd all be dead. That's who my brother is. A man who became what he hated to protect the people he loves." Autumn sat motionless, processing information that reframed every interaction she'd had with Kane. The coffee. The daily visits. The concern about her eating habits. The way he looked at her sometimes like she was something precious he was afraid to break. That's when the first death threat arrived. Autumn's phone vibrated during a conference call with Kane's financial team. She glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number. Normally she'd ignore it, but something made her open the message. A photograph filled the screen. Ethan in his hospital bed at the Mueller Institute. Tubes and wires connecting him to machines. Eyes closed. Peaceful. The photo had been taken through a window from outside the building. Someone had stood in the German twilight with a camera pointed at her brother's room. Below the image, a single line of text. "Your brother's heart monitor can be hacked. Make Kane's files accessible, or watch Ethan flatline." The phone slipped from Autumn's hand. It clattered against her desk. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The conference call continued on speakerphone, voices discussing profit margins and territory expansion, but the words turned into meaningless noise. The photo was time-stamped 30 minutes ago. Someone had been outside Ethan's window half an hour ago. Autumn ran. Out of her office, down the hallway, up the stairs to the executive floor, past Kane's assistant, who shouted something about him being in a meeting. She didn't care. She burst through the double doors to his office, where Kane sat with 5 men in expensive suits, discussing something that stopped the moment she entered. "Out!" Kane's voice cut through the room. The 5 men gathered their papers and left without question. The door closed behind them. What happened? Autumn couldn't speak. She held up her phone with shaking hands. Kane crossed the room in 3 strides, took the device, read the message. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened until she could see muscle working beneath skin. When did you receive this? 2 minutes ago. They're at the Mueller Institute. They're watching Ethan. They can kill him. Her voice broke. They can hack his heart monitor, turn off his machines. I need to call the hospital, I need to. Kane made a phone call. All he said was, "Find Angelo Rossi. Bring him to me breathing." He hung up and made another call. "This is Kane. Authorization code 77 Delta 4. Patient Ethan Rivers at Mueller Institute, Berlin. Immediate emergency extraction. Private air ambulance to secure medical facility. Location classification black. Move now." Another call. "I need 8 men at the office in 10 minutes. Armed, full tactical gear." He finally looked at Autumn, who'd collapsed into a chair. "Your brother is being moved to a facility only 3 people in the world know exists. Medical staff will accompany him. Military-grade security. No one gets within 200 yards without authorization. He'll be safer there than anywhere on Earth." "How do you have a secret hospital?" The question came out absurd, but shock made everything feel distant and strange. "I've been in this business 19 years. You learn to prepare for contingencies." Kane sat on the edge of his desk. The message came from a burner phone. Untraceable. "But the threat tells me everything I need to know. Someone wants access to my systems badly enough to target you through your brother. That narrows the list considerably." "Who?" "Angelo Rossi. He's been trying to take my territory for 2 years. He's smart enough to know he can't beat me through direct conflict. So he goes after my vulnerabilities." Kane's gray eyes held something cold and deadly. "You've become a vulnerability." "I can quit." Autumn stood on legs that barely supported her weight. "I'll leave Chicago. Take Ethan somewhere else. You'll be safe." "He'll be safe." "I'll disappear." "You're not leaving." The words came out flat, absolute. "They'll kill him to get to you. They'll try. They'll fail. Because from this moment forward, you have 24-hour protection." Kane gestured toward the door as Roman entered with 7 other men, all carrying weapons Autumn didn't want to identify. 8 guards, 4 on you at all times, rotating shifts. They follow you everywhere. Bathroom, bedroom, every step. "I don't need." "You don't get a choice." Kane stood and moved close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Someone just threatened your brother to force you into betraying me. That makes you a target. That makes you my responsibility. You're under my protection now. Anyone who touches you answers to me." His hand lifted to her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. The gesture was so gentle it almost broke her completely. "Why are you doing this?" Autumn whispered. "I'm just an employee, just someone you hired. You could let me go. Find another programmer. Cut your losses." Kane's expression shifted. The cold Mafia boss disappeared, replaced by something raw and human. "You think that's all you are? Just an employee?" His voice dropped lower. "I've watched you work 90-hour weeks. Watched you choose vending machine dinners instead of ordering real food because you're still thinking like someone who can't afford it. Watched you light up every time your brother's doctors send progress reports. You saved my empire with a $3 USB drive because you have more courage in one finger than most of my men have in their entire bodies." His other hand came up to frame her face. "You're not just an employee, Autumn Rivers. You haven't been for months. I don't let anyone hurt what's mine, and you're mine." The words hung between them like a detonation. Autumn's heart hammered against her ribs. She should step back, should remind him about professional boundaries. Should do anything except stand there while Chicago's most dangerous Mafia boss claimed her like territory. "Kane." "Say it's not mutual." His eyes searched hers. "Tell me you feel nothing. That every time I bring you coffee you don't smile. That you don't look for me when you achieve something worth celebrating. Tell me I'm imagining the way you respond when I walk into a room." Autumn couldn't say any of those things, because they'd all be lies. That night, Kane drove her to a safe house himself, not a penthouse apartment, but a fortified building in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. 8 guards in 2 vehicles followed them. The city lights blurred past the windows of Kane's car, while Autumn sat in silence, processing everything that had happened in 6 hours. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. $3 million bounty. Alive. Every criminal in Chicago will be hunting you by morning. Kane read the message over her shoulder. His expression remained calm, but his knuckles went white against the steering wheel. I didn't know it then, but that threat would trigger the bloodiest week of Chicago's underworld history. 2 weeks after the bounty was placed on her head, Autumn pressed the enter key and watched Fortress Protocol go fully operational. The system she'd spent 4.5 months building came to life across every server in Kane's empire. Self-healing algorithms activated. Artificial intelligence began learning threat patterns in real time. Encryption keys changed every 90 seconds. Firewalls strengthened with each attempted breach. The results appeared on her monitoring screen within minutes. System efficiency increased 600%. Processing speeds tripled. Security vulnerabilities dropped to 0. Her projections showed Kane's empire would save $400 million annually through optimization alone. The system was revolutionary, impenetrable, everything she'd promised and more. Autumn sat back in her chair and allowed herself a moment of pure satisfaction. She'd done it. She'd built something that would change how digital security functioned. MIT had expelled her for a crime she didn't commit, but she'd just created something their top graduates couldn't conceive. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kane. Rooftop. Now. She took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened onto a private space she'd never seen before. A rooftop garden with trees and massive planters, a small fountain, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The city stretched endlessly below them. Kane stood by the railing, looking out at the skyline. He'd removed his suit jacket, white shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost relaxed. Fortress Protocol is online, Autumn said as she approached. All systems are responding perfectly. You're now running the most secure digital infrastructure in the country. I know. I've been watching the numbers. Kane turned to face her. You exceeded every expectation, built something extraordinary, changed everything. I had good motivation, a brother to save and a man to destroy. Is that the only motivation? Kane's gray eyes held hers. Autumn felt her pulse quicken. They'd been dancing around this conversation for weeks, ever since he'd claimed her as his in the car. Ever since she'd stopped pretending his daily visits were purely professional. Ever since she'd realized she looked for him constantly, her day incomplete until he walked into her office. Why did you bring me up here? She asked instead of answering. Kane was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried weight she'd never heard before. My father was murdered 19 years ago. I was at university. Business degree. I was going to run the legitimate side of the family operations. Let someone else handle the darker aspects. Then my father's closest friend put 12 bullets in him during a dinner meeting. My father died on the restaurant floor while I held his hand. He turned back to the skyline. I was 19 years old. Nina was 13. Our mother was falling apart. The organization was fracturing. Every rival family saw vulnerability. They circled like sharks. Someone had to step up. Someone had to become what my father had been. Dangerous enough that people feared us. Ruthless enough that betrayal carried a price no one wanted to pay. So you became the boss, Autumn said softly. I became a monster. Because monsters don't get betrayed. Monsters don't get their families killed. For 18 years, I've lived in shadows. Trusted no one completely. Loved no one. Let no one get close enough to become a weakness. Kane's hands gripped the railing. I've lived in shadows so long, I forgot what light felt like. Then you walked into that room with your stubborn eyes and your old USB trick, and everything changed. His hand touched my face, and I forgot how to breathe. You make me want things I thought I'd killed years ago. Kane continued. Normal things. Conversations over coffee. Someone to come home to. Someone who sees past the monster to whatever's left of the man underneath. Autumn's heart hammered. She'd spent 4 months telling herself her feelings for Kane were gratitude, appreciation for saving Ethan, professional respect, anything except the truth. But standing here with the sunset casting gold across his face, with his hand warm against her cheek, she couldn't lie anymore. I'm falling for you. The words came out barely above a whisper. I know it's dangerous. I know you're a mafia boss who's killed people. I know being with you means living in constant threat. But I can't stop thinking about you. I look for you every day. I work harder because I want you to be proud of me. And when you touch me like you're doing right now, I forget every reason I should walk away. Kane's expression shifted from vulnerability to pain. He dropped his hand and stepped back. You should walk away. I'll only bring you darkness. You deserve better. Someone legitimate. Someone who can give you a normal life. Anger flared in Autumn's chest. Don't decide for me what I deserve. You don't understand what you're signing up for. I've lived through hell. Her voice rose. I spent 7 years working 3 jobs, sleeping 2 hours a night. Watching my brother die slowly while the world ignored me. I was invisible. Powerless. Pushed around by everyone. Don't stand there and tell me I can't handle your darkness. I've lived in darkness my entire adult life. She moved closer, closing the distance he'd created. You're not the only one who's been alone. You're not the only one who stopped believing in normal things. The difference is you chose your isolation. Mine was forced on me. So don't tell me I deserve better. Don't make decisions for me like I'm fragile. I'm not fragile. I'm strong enough to stand next to you. Kane stared at her, conflict warring across his features. If you stay with me, you can't ever go back to being invisible. Everyone will know you're mine. Every enemy I have will target you. Every danger I face becomes your danger. You'll live with bodyguards, with threats, with violence at the edges of everything. I don't want to be invisible anymore. Autumn reached up and placed her hand against his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. I want to be seen. By you. Something in Kane broke. The walls he'd maintained for 18 years cracked. He pulled her against him and kissed her with the desperation of a drowning man finding air. Autumn kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, 7 years of loneliness melting away in the heat between them. The kiss was not gentle. It carried months of tension, weeks of dancing around feelings neither wanted to name, years of isolation on both sides. Kane's hands threaded through her hair. Autumn pressed closer, wanting to eliminate every inch of space between them. When they finally broke apart to breathe, Kane rested his forehead against hers. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. All I can promise is that I'll protect you with everything I have, that you'll never be invisible again, that I'll see you for exactly who you are. That's all I need. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, and Chicago's lights began to flicker on across the city. Autumn felt, for the first time since MIT expelled her, that she belonged somewhere, that someone valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. Kane pulled the device from his pocket, looked at the screen. His expression shifted from contentment to alarm in a heartbeat. He answered. What happened? Pause. When he answered, his face went white. Say that again. Another pause. His jaw clenched. How many dead? Autumn's blood turned to ice. She knew before he said it. Knew from the look in his eyes. Kane lowered the phone. Angelo Rossi just attacked the facility where Ethan was, and we were 15 minutes too late. Kane's Maybach tore through Chicago streets at speeds that should have killed them. Roman drove while Kane made call after call, mobilizing every armed man in his organization. Autumn sat in the back seat, numb with terror. Her brother, the only family she had left, the person she'd sacrificed everything to save. Rossi had found him. The secure facility was 40 minutes outside the city. They covered the distance in 23. 2 black SUVs full of Kane's guards followed close behind. Autumn's hands gripped the door handle so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She couldn't think, couldn't process, could only repeat a silent prayer she hadn't said since she was a child. Please let him be alive. Please let him be alive. Please. They arrived to chaos. Gunfire echoed through the late afternoon air. Kane's guards who'd been stationed at the facility were engaged in a firefight with men in tactical gear, bodies on the ground. Shattered glass, smoke from something burning inside the building. Roman barely stopped the car before Kane threw open his door. Stay here, he ordered Autumn. She didn't listen. The moment her feet hit pavement, she was running toward the entrance, running toward her brother. Guards shouted at her to get down. Bullets carved through the air. She didn't care. Ethan was in there. Strong arms grabbed her from behind. Kane. He dragged her behind a concrete barrier as gunfire intensified. You can't run into a combat zone. My brother is in there. And you'll be dead before you reach the door. Kane's eyes blazed with fury and fear. Let my men clear the building. Then we go in together. The firefight lasted 8 more minutes. Kane's guards were better trained, better equipped. Rossi's mercenaries fell one by one until silence descended heavy and ominous. Roman emerged from the entrance and waved them forward. Autumn ran. Through the shattered front doors, past bodies she didn't look at too closely. down hallways marked with bullet holes. Kane stayed at her side, weapon drawn, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd lived through combat before. Ethan's room was on the 3rd floor. The door hung off its hinges. Inside, medical equipment lay overturned. IV stands knocked to the floor. The bed was empty. Autumn's heart stopped. He was gone. They'd taken him. She'd failed him. After everything, she'd failed to keep him safe. "Miss Rivers." A voice came from a supply closet across the hall. A nurse emerged, face pale with terror, pushing a medical gurney. Ethan lay on it, still connected to portable monitors, still breathing, still alive. "I heard the shooting and moved him immediately," the nurse explained in rapid German-accented English. "The safe room. It's bulletproof. They tried to breach it but couldn't." Autumn collapsed against the gurney, her hands finding her brother's arm. His pulse beat steady under her fingers. Alive. He was alive. "I heard the gunshot before. I felt Kane slam into me." 1 second she was standing. The next, Kane's body hit her from the side with enough force to knock her to the ground. His weight crushed her against the tile floor. She heard his sharp intake of breath, felt something warm and wet soaking through her shirt. Blood. His blood. Kane rolled off her, his hand pressed to his side where crimson spread across his white shirt. A mercenary Autumn hadn't seen, hidden in a patient room, collapsed as Roman put 3 bullets in him. "Kane!" Autumn scrambled to his side. The wound was high on his left side, below his ribs. Blood poured between his fingers. Too much blood. "I'm fine." His voice came out strained. "Superficial. Just grazed me." "You're bleeding everywhere." "I've had worse." Kane pushed himself to sitting, his face pale but determined. Roman appeared with a first aid kit, already packing the wound with gauze. "How's your brother?" "Alive. He's alive because of you." Autumn's hands shook as she helped Roman apply pressure to the wound. "You need a hospital." "I need to finish what Rossi started." Kane stood with Roman's help. His shirt was soaked through, but he moved like the injury was nothing. "Your brother gets moved to a new facility. Somewhere not even my own guards know the location. Roman handles transport. You and I have business to attend to." Kane's face held no compromise. "Finish this first." Autumn pulled out her laptop while Roman's men secured the building and arranged Ethan's transport. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing Fortress protocol from the mobile interface she'd designed for emergencies exactly like this. The system tracked every digital footprint in Chicago. Security cameras, traffic systems, cell phone signals, financial transactions. Within 3 minutes, she had a location. Warehouse District, Dock 17. 3 active cell phones inside. 1 registered to Gregory Walsh, 1 to Angelo Rossi. They're there right now. Kane made a call. Full mobilization. Dock 17, 30 men, heavy weapons. 5 minutes. He looked at Autumn. "You're staying here." "No." She closed her laptop with a sharp snap. "Walsh destroyed my life. I deserve to see his face when everything he built collapses. It's too dangerous." "I don't care." Autumn met his gaze without flinching. "You took a bullet for me. The least you can do is let me watch you destroy the man who started all of this." Kane studied her for a long moment. Whatever he saw in her expression made him nod. "You stay behind me, always. The second I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" "Understood." They left Ethan in Roman's protection and took a convoy of 6 vehicles to the docks. 30 armed men Kane trusted with his life. The warehouse was exactly where Fortress Protocol said it would be. Old brick building with rusted metal doors. Loading docks empty of cargo. Perfect place for rats to hide. Kane's men surrounded the building in 3 minutes. No way in, no way out. Kane kicked open the front door and walked inside like he owned the place. Autumn followed, heart pounding, hands steady. Walsh and Rossi were trying to escape through a back exit that Kane's men had already blocked. Walsh saw her and his confident expression crumbled. Rossi clutched his arm where blood seeped through his jacket. He'd been shot in the earlier firefight. Walsh smiled when he saw me. That smile died fast. "Autumn Rivers." Walsh's voice carried the same condescending tone he'd used 7 years ago when he'd watched campus security drag her away. "Still playing hero? You were always weak. That's why you failed at MIT. That's why you'll fail now." Autumn walked closer until only 5 feet separated them. Kane's men had weapons trained on both Walsh and Rossi. No escape possible. "I didn't fail." Her voice came out calm, controlled, powerful. "I survived. 7 years of hell you created. 7 years of working 3 jobs. 7 years of carrying injustice while you lived free, and now you're about to pay for every single one of those years. She pulled a USB drive from her pocket, the same $3 drive she'd used to save Kane's empire 5 months ago. Every crime you committed, every exam you stole, every bribe your father paid to bury evidence, every person the Rossi family killed. It's all here. Documented, time-stamped, encrypted. I spent 7 years tracking you, Walsh. Learning your patterns, collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment. Autumn handed the drive to Kane. Send it to the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, and every major news network. Kane took the drive, something like pride crossing his features. You want legal revenge? I want them to rot in federal cells knowing a waitress destroyed them without ever pulling a trigger. I want Walsh to explain to his father how a girl he framed brought down a senator. I want Rossi to watch his empire crumble from behind bars. That's real revenge. Kane smiled. He made a phone call. FBI? I have information about the Rossi crime family and Senator Walsh's son. Yes, I'll hold. I pressed send. 90 seconds later, FBI breached the doors. 2 years passed like a dream Autumn kept expecting to end. But dreams, she learned, could become real if you fought hard enough for them. Ethan woke from his coma 8 months after the experimental treatment. The moment he opened his eyes and whispered her name, Autumn cried for 20 minutes straight. Real tears, happy tears, the kind she'd forgotten existed. Now he walked with a cane and physical therapy 3 times a week. His speech was slower than before the accident, his left side weaker, but he was alive. Talking, laughing, making terrible jokes about his extended nap that lasted 2.5 years. Gregory Walsh was serving 25 years in federal prison for cybercrime, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. Senator Walsh resigned in disgrace and faced his own charges. The golden boy who destroyed Autumn's life would be 60 years old before he saw freedom again. Angelo Rossi received life without parole. His crime family collapsed within weeks of his arrest. Territory divided among other organizations. His name became a warning about overreaching ambition. Kane Digital Security became one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Built on Fortress Protocol's foundation, the company provided cybersecurity to Fortune 500 corporations, government agencies, and organizations that needed protection money couldn't buy. Valued at $8 billion, publicly traded, legitimate. Autumn served as Chief Technology Officer. Forbes featured her on their cover with the headline, "From Waitress to Tech Genius, the Autumn Rivers Story." She used her platform to launch the Second Chance Scholarship, a $10 million fund supporting students who'd been wrongly expelled or faced injustice in education. Every year, 20 students received full funding to finish their degrees and rebuild their lives. Kane transitioned his empire slowly toward legitimacy. Some aspects would never be completely clean. That was the nature of his world. But the worst parts faded. The violence decreased. The organization evolved into something that operated more in boardrooms than back alleys. Present day found Autumn and Kane at the rehabilitation center visiting Ethan. Her brother sat in a wheelchair near the window, physical therapy completed for the day, joking with his occupational therapist about his progress. "I'm going to walk without this cane by Christmas," Ethan declared. "Make my sister cry happy tears again." "You already make me cry happy tears." Autumn hugged him carefully. "You're here. You're talking. That's everything." Ethan looked at Kane. "Thank you for saving her. For saving me. I know what you did. What you risked." Kane nodded once. "She saved me first. I'm just returning the favor." That evening, Kane took Autumn back to the rooftop where they'd kissed 2 years ago. The same place she'd confessed her feelings while sunset painted Chicago in fire. The garden looked exactly as she remembered. Trees in their planters, fountain running, furniture arranged for comfort and conversation. Kane led her to the railing where they'd stood that first time. The city sprawled below them, lights beginning to flicker on as afternoon transitioned toward evening. 2 years ago, you told me you wanted to be seen, Kane said quietly. That you were tired of being invisible. I remember. You've become impossible to miss. Chief Technology Officer of a company worth billions. Philanthropist. The woman who brought down a corrupt senator and dismantled a crime family with nothing but code and courage. Kane turned to face her. But there's one more thing I want to give you. He lowered himself to one knee. Autumn's breath caught in her throat. Her hands flew to her mouth. This couldn't be happening. But Kane was pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. opening it to reveal a diamond ring that caught the fading sunlight. You saved my empire with keystrokes. You saved my soul with your courage. You saved me from becoming the monster I thought I had to be. His gray eyes held everything she'd ever wanted to see. I don't deserve you. I know that. But I love you. And I want to spend whatever time I have proving I can be worthy of you. Will you marry me? Autumn cried, laughed, nodded because words wouldn't come. Finally, she managed to speak through tears. Only if you promise never to take a bullet for me again. Cain smiled. Can't promise that, but I can promise I'll spend every day proving I'm worthy of you. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, kissed her while Chicago watched from below and the sky turned gold above them. When they finally broke apart, Autumn looked out at the city where she'd once walked invisible. 7 years ago, she'd been nobody, a failed student with a tragic brother and impossible debts. She'd carried plates for people who never saw her face, slept on subway trains, counted pennies, lived in darkness with no hope of light. Now she stood on top of the world with the man she loved, her brother alive and recovering, her enemies behind bars, her dreams realized beyond anything she'd imagined possible. She'd walked into that private dining room at Giovanni's with nothing but knowledge and desperation. She'd walked out with everything she'd ever lost and more than she'd dreamed possible. All because she dared to say 4 words, I can help you. That's how a waitress saved a mafia boss and found the family she'd lost along the way. If my story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Autumn's place? And I would really appreciate it if you could share your thoughts about my videos. Your feedback helps me improve and create even better content for you. Thank you for being here, for believing in second chances, and for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove you're never too broken to rebuild your life. See you in the next one.